Councilmember Schroeder,
Here.
Councilmember Fisickelli,
Yes.
Councilmember Jablonski,
Here.
Vice Mayor Bright Cruz,
Here.
Mayor McKay.
Here. Could we please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Awesome. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out. Appreciate it. I'm looking for a motion to move the school board, Broward County School Board's here to speak, to move them to the top of the list.
I'll make a motion to move that presentation to the first item.
Second.
Awesome. Would you roll call, please?
Councilmember Schroeder,
Here.
Councilmember Fisickelli,
Yes.
Councilmember Jablonski,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bright Cruz,
Yes.
Mayor McKay.
Yes. Okay. So, who am I going to hand it to? All right. Jeff? You want to tee it up?
Sure thing, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. On your agenda, item number 8 is a resolution approving an amendment. I believe it's I'm not even going to try. Second Amendment to the interlocal, Third Amendment to the county school concurrency agreement. Essentially, this is an agreement that the town has entered into with the county and the school board. It provides for sharing of information so that the school board can project growth and plan for its facilities and the standards by which concurrency for schools is conducted. And they're going to explain to you the current concurrency setup and how that would change in this agreement. And just basically, concurrency is the requirement that school facilities be available concurrent with the demands for those facilities that is created by development. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to school board staff.
Okay. I don't have everybody's name, so just announce who you are. Thanks.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. We thank you for giving us the opportunity to appear, before you this evening. My name is Chris Akabusu. I'm the Director for Facility Planning and Real Estate, and with me is my staff, Lisa White, and she's going to give the presentation. And if you have any questions, we'll be here to answer. Thank you.
Okay. You do? Okay. Well, I fully intended to ask that. Exactly.
Good evening. My name is Lisa White. Thank you for having me this evening. I'll be presenting this amendment. It's basically to change and allow for what counts as capacity in your public school concurrency system. Basically, it would allow us to continue counting portables if they're on site, and that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about math, so this is going to get maybe a little technical, maybe a little boring, but I'll try to go quickly. And if I rush over anything that you would like me to go into more detail, I'd be happy to revisit that or answer any questions you might have. I'll be presenting just information on public school concurrency, what it is, and the history of how we've gotten here, and some of the past efforts we've had to address our concurrency challenges. Summarize the initiatives that we've taken since the last adoption of the amendment to address some of those challenges, and then explain what the amendment is, and then hopefully have your approval by the end of it. As Jeff said about what concurrency is, it's that to make sure that facilities are in place when the impact of development occurs, and it applies to other types of facilities like roads and water and sewer, and schools too. It temporarily prohibits development from moving forward if the capacity is not there, and the developer has the opportunity to either wait until we can demonstrate in our 5-year plan that we can build the infrastructure that is needed, or if they can't wait, they can propose mitigation to pay for the expansion of the infrastructure needed for their project. Oh, sorry, I forgot. There we go. Thank you. The key requirements of public school concurrency, first of all, was to incorporate the concurrency provisions into the contract that we have with each of the cities in Broward County, the school board, and the cities. And that's the ILA, and that's what we're proposing to amend today. You had to establish what your concurrency service areas are, which is the geographic unit of measurements for concurrency, and we use school boundary changes for that. Or school boundaries for that, sorry, not changes. And then you have to...
You're right, they have changes all the time.
They do. The unit of measurement is the boundary then. And then you have to adopt a level of service standard, which is the threshold which you consider whether or not there is capacity. And when we initially established concurrency in the county, we established it with just permanent capacity, 110% permanent capacity. And then in 2010, we amended it to 100% gross capacity, which includes your portables. And we're here today because if we are not able to amend the ILA, it will lead to boundary changes from the inability to count our portables. We also have the requirement to demonstrate through data that we can meet and achieve our level of service standard within our 5-year period of capital improvements. The level of service is the standard at which a public school facility is expected to operate based on the capacity of the facility, and it's expressed as a ratio of student enrollment divided by the capacity of the school. In 2019-20, our level of service under the current ILA will revert back to 110% permanent capacity, and this is just an equation that shows how that would work with an enrollment of 2,000 and a capacity of 1,800. This example shows one school that has portables on their facility, but with two different level of service standards, what would happen? One is gross capacity, which allows you to count your portables, so all the seats there would be able to use for level of service, and you would have to move 0 students. And in the bottom scenario, none of the portables would count, and so you would have to move 788 students out of your school, even though you have portables on the site. And that is never an easy scenario for a community who'd like to keep their boundaries where they are. And when this was originally, slide was originally made, it was based on a real scenario at a school. So when you have a level of service deficiency, you have basically 3 options. You can build new capacity, change school boundaries, or modify one of the key elements of concurrency that I went over before. In 2010, we were responding to the financial crisis of the Great Recession and a period now of declining enrollment where we had more seats than we had students as a district. And so the only tool in our toolbox was to use school boundary changes to deal with those deficiencies. And the ILA was amended to allow portables to count for temporarily for 10 years. In 2019, that would terminate. During that process, it exposed a competition for resources between the western cities that had overcapacity issues and eastern cities who felt that they were struggling with under-enrollment and underperformance. So since I had to have one presentation for all the cities around the county, I have to also speak to some of those eastern cities who'd like to know what we're doing in their side of town. And one of the things we're doing is going through a comprehensive relocatable plan to dispose of portables that are not wanted or needed on their sites. And every year we go through an evaluation process and commit funding to do that, and have done that since its inception. We have a student success opportunity school to address struggling schools and provide programmatic community-based solutions for that. And that's been quite successful. As you know, we have the bond to invest in all of our existing facilities, and only a small portion of that bond is going towards building more capacity in the southwestern part of the county. And then finally, we have school boundary changes, and we just wanted to make sure that we were able to send the message that even though we're asking for this amendment now, since we last amended the ILA in 2010, we've done 41 boundary changes. So we have been doing that. Why we need to change the level of service now is that the proliferation of parent choice and charters since this was done in 2010 has rendered our ability to control enrollment by changing a line much less effective. And that has continued to expand ever since the charters kind of came on the scene. And then the other problem that we have is, as I said before, since we have more seats as a district than we have students, the state will not allow us to use state money to build capacity at our schools. We could use bond money, and we used a little bit for that, but we can't use state money. Under the current ILA, this is what the schools look like in 1920 when we revert back to not counting portables again. And basically anything with a red or a pink shows a level of service deficiency. Red just means more deficient. I'm going to summarize and compare them in a graph in a few slides, so I'll just kind of go quickly here. What we're proposing now is to implement the level of service standard as the higher of 100% gross with portables or 110% permanent. And we've gone and discussed this idea with the state, and they said that it would pass the requirement for having to have a uniform level of service standard for all schools of the same type. We weren't sure of that because it's kind of an either-or scenario, but based on how we've structured it, it meets this requirement in statutes. This is what the county looks like at the elementary, middle, and school level under the alternate level of service standard. And again, any pink or reds show deficiencies. You see now only one red and pinks, which means less, not as deficient, and fewer of them. It allows flexibility to recognize school capacity that exists on site, regardless of the type, portable or permanent. And it helps us to avoid boundary changes that would be necessary to meet school concurrency if they have that capacity there. It helps us to maintain the integrity of the neighborhoods and by not being disruptive and allowing the concepts of schools to continue to serve as community focal points. It recognizes more capacity to support residential development while still maintaining maximum thresholds to protect our educational needs, and allows for the ability for a developer to pay for its impact on the system if that threshold is exceeded. This is the slide I was referring to where you look at each of the standards we've had, 100% gross, 110% permanent, or the alternate, which is the higher of. And what that shows through the numbers is the least number of schools would be LOS deficient, the least number of student stations that would be LOS deficient, and the least number of classrooms that we would need to build in order to meet our level of service standard under the alternate level of service concept. Currently, the community process to gain support for this went through the staff working group and the oversight committee. Excuse me. The staff working group and the oversight committee, which are comprised of the city planners throughout the county, as well as an oversight committee appointed by the signatories, have both unanimously supported this idea, and it received the approval of the school board and the county. And now we're on what we're calling the road show to visit all of the cities to gain their support. And so far, 2 cities have voted on it and approved it in the last week. So 2 weeks. And so now we're looking for these cities to continue until we meet the threshold we need to make this amendment effective. Does anyone have any questions?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Council? Who'd like to go first?
I do have a comment.
All right. Go ahead, Steve.
So, with the, clearly, having had three daughters go through Broward County schools, the changing of the feeder patterns, changing of the boundaries, moving students around from school to school is clearly not a good way to, for the youth to come up through the program. It's very disruptive and impacts their friends, the groups that they're involved with, the extracurricular activities, the whole 9 yards. So clearly, I support the idea that we're, going to work towards that not happening. However, the other piece that is not too far behind, it's behind, but not too far behind, is my daughters on many occasions, it's not 1 or 2, but many occasions, would come home with stories about how their classes in the portables, had water dripping through the ceiling, how the AC didn't work, how the conditions in there were frankly unacceptable. And so it worries me considerably that, I mean, I believe the idea was to have this through 2019 so we could solve the problem by 2019. And it seems to me that what we're doing is perpetuating the problem and kicking the can down the road a little further with this. So tell me a little bit about that.
Do you want to take this? Do you want me to?
Thanks, Commissioner, for that question. You know, like the president, first of all, we're going to say your schools under either scenario is going to help the schools that serve your community. Secondly, for your question, like part of the presentation said, we have a very comprehensive portable, we call it the transition plan. It's pretty much required by the state, and it's part of the school board's 5-year capital plan. So every year, the school board funds, you know, that plan to pretty much dispose of portables. It's a very comprehensive process. So what we do, we have a very elaborate process whereby the principal gets involved, the building official gets involved, they go, you know, review it and determine the portable is unsatisfactory. So based on that, then they you know, determine unsatisfactory, then we have to dispose of them. The ones that can be fixed, they send information to our maintenance department, and then they go fix them. So it's a systematic process. As you know, unfortunately, we are struggling for financial resources, you know, to be able to meet, you know, most specifically the children. So we have to do that balance. But pretty much right now, there's a comprehensive system, you know, to do that.
Right. So, and I appreciate that. You know, it's, I just, the inevitability is that the replacement doesn't, I've never seen it happen. Maybe you can correct me if I go astray, or maybe in a really disaster situation, it does happen midterm. But what I've always seen is that the students have to deal with that less than optimal environment for the school year. And then these changes are made after over the summer or during maybe another break. But you know, I'm not here to you know.
Yeah, but you have
speak
firsthand
that.
experience.
But
so
it is
it's-
firsthand experience, and it's you know, my own daughters came home with these stories that I found outrageous, to be honest with you. And I think it's important that the base problem be resolved. That was why 2019. It seemed a long way off when it was first put out there. You know, like, yeah, we can solve that by then. And I just don't think we're solving the problem here. I mean, I admire what you're doing. I think, you know, you've got your hands full. I get that. But I think we need to. This is another stopgap from my standpoint, and I'm not hearing anything about a long-term plan. I guess that's what I. And I'll just stop there.
Go ahead, Dee.
Wow. Don't even know where to start. I've been through this too, twice. And in case you didn't know, I at one time ran for the Broward County School Board. So I got to visit a lot of your schools. Seeing some of the schools on the east side, as opposed to the west side, where better education, better teachers, better everything was really required, and it was not. These kids were sitting inside a building with leaks, sharing desks, and sharing books. Now, I don't know about you, but when I look at my tax bill and I see half of my taxes going to the schools, it doesn't mean it stops there. Each and every one of us has contributed in some way, whether it be fundraisers or donating or something. So it's just take, and it never seems to be enough. I haven't seen any problem solving here, a bunch of empty promises. You know, a word used to mean something years ago. It doesn't seem to be. And not sounding too angry, but I had a horrible experience with Broward County. Horrible. If I had been in the position to put my kids in a private school which they really didn't want to go. They wanted to be with their friends and stuff. I probably would have done it. The one thing that kind of threw this whole town over the top was when we were literally within how many feet of a school,
Hundreds.
Across the street.
Across the
and we're told no. You don't like it? Too bad. A public school that was pretty much kept private, but was funded by Public School Monday. So, to sit here and say that I agree with most of this, I don't. You know, until we can see some changes, you have a community such as Weston, a planned community, planned. So why was there such a big guess like, well, now we've got more kids? Well, you planned this whole community. It wasn't like Southwest Ranches. You should have known every square inch of that and how many kids, if you allowed for families to come in, they should have known. But to take and alienate kids from different areas, Davie was one of them. They got alienated. Even parts of Weston itself, like further out west, those kids were alienated. Those were theirs. That's what we pay our tax dollars for. And to have these kids sit in portables, when I paid for the building, I pay to have those kids inside a safe structure. Nobody is going to tell me a portable is a safe structure. Nobody. Been in them, seen them, been in mobile homes, done the whole 9 yards. They're not. So I pretty much agree with Steve. I think there needs to be some good bite and grit in this, and we need to see something. You know, I'm not really on board with it. Like I said, you know, when you go through this with your own children and you hear the complaints constantly, and like you said, no feeder plans. All these kids they went to school with are going here. Well, you can't go there. Why not? Well, you know the way I took it? Well, you live in Southwest Ranches. That's the way I took it. Like our kids weren't good enough. I've watched the academic growth throughout the years. You know, I know principals and vice principals. I've talked to them all. And instead of trying to build more to accommodate more kids, why not make what we have stronger and better? Better teachers, better programs, better everything. Take the money and put for that. And like I said, most of these areas that we're talking about, they were all planned. So they should have known. You know, who overlooked this? Who knows? You know, there's nobody you can just put a finger on and blame for that. But I know for a fact there was planned areas, and they just didn't think outside the box. So, thank you.
Gary?
Yeah, just briefly, I don't think I could add too much to what's already been said. One of the disappointing things that I think comes out of some of this is, you know, this council voted not to endorse the bond referendum because we didn't think the money was going to be managed correctly, and this kind of validates that. I mean, in a manner of speaking, and you know, the one thing I'm really not seeing here is a plan, a better plan, I guess is probably what I'm not seeing here. And it's like we're behind the 8 ball, and we've been behind the 8 ball for 10 years or whatever it is. And I'm just not seeing, you know, something that's going to comfort parents, that's going to comfort future leaders and things of that nature at this point. We're just saying, you know, we don't have a solution, but we got to deal with this. And that's kind of where we're at right now, and it's a little disappointing, you know, frankly. So, you know, I mean, you obviously not you individuals, but you know, you can take that back to your superiors and let them know that. I appreciate it. That's all I have for comment.
Freddie, you got anything? Okay. I got to tell you a couple of things that I'm looking for a couple of answers to. Has anybody turned this down yet and not approved it?
Not yet.
Okay. Secondly, what are you doing or have you been doing regarding the students that don't belong, that come from Dade County and come up here and go to Cypress Bay, or come out of the area that are going to those schools that don't belong there, that use their uncle's address, their cousin's address, their whatever address.
Once they hit above 102% of their capacity, we run a system, like an investigative system, that does a digital analysis of all the different, where you get your pizza delivered to, where your library card is, all those things, and it spits out things that kind of might be questionable, and then they do a deeper dig. So that's how they've, I think last year when they did that, they were able to identify hundreds of kids between Bayview Elementary, Cypress Bay, and were able to avoid boundary changes by kicking out.
But in that scenario, you're telling me they've already started school, the school process is maybe halfway through the year, and then here you are, oops, we're over capacity, and now we're going to look at that issue. I don't know why you wouldn't look at that issue on the front end and confirm that those kids or those people actually live or wherever they are before you register them in school, because then you're just disrupting them all over again. So I would say you definitely need to do a better job at that, on catching on the front end before you allow them in. So here and there on that. The other issue I have, the school board purchased some property from the town of Southwest Ranches. I don't know, how many years ago was that? Did we go?
2004, I think.
Anyhow, what is you all's intent with that property, and are you going to do anything with it? Because we got slammed about selling you swampland, and we said, that's okay, we'll buy it back. So,
Mayor, to make that further, every 2-3 years, the town has sent the school board of Broward County a letter in which we've said to you, if you're not going to do anything with this property, we want it back and we'll pay you for it. And each time it gets rejected, yet we're now probably 15 years in, and you still have done nothing with the property. What's the status on that?
The property is still vacant. The property is still part of the vacant, vacant inventory of land that we own. The school board, as you know, growth is taking place. Land is run out in Broward County. Right now, we have excess capacity district-wide. The state will not allow, the school board to utilize state funds to build any capacity. But at least we have property, which includes this property, and if need be in time, at least we have it, and, when we can afford to build and then the need is there to build, definitely I think, there may be, push in that direction. But we pretty much are amassing land. We're not disposing of every single property we have because we may need them.
No,
Well-
but they just said that they're in need of, always in need of money. So when in need of money, not that I'm pushing for it. I mean, it's not like I have an agenda or anything, but if you need the money to go forward and better programs and screen more teachers or whatever you need to do to better the education, because the education here in South Florida is not exactly at the top of the list. So if you need the monies to do that, you do have properties and avenues that you can go that you need to look into that maybe you should be thinking about.
So, so moving forward, I would say the other issue is that property is not being maintained. I don't know that we're doing anything, but that property one time was cleared and good and level, and now it's all overgrown again. So, any thoughts on you guys maintaining it in the future, or not really?
I'll take that exact, feedback, back to our maintenance department and maybe take steps to do what they can do, to pretty much alleviate that concern. But again, we own the property, and I guess we'll have to, it's not meant to be an eyesore. I assure you that. I mean, we totally respect, all the cooperation you've given us, but I'll take that feedback back to
The other thing I had is the boundary changes. I don't remember, but years back they were occurring every other year or something. So that was, where are you at now, and how frequently are you changing boundaries? I mean, because some people, let me just throw this out there. Some parents shop to buy a house in a neighborhood so their kids can go to that school. And then they buy that house, they move in there, and no sooner they move in and their kids are going to that school, you all step up and change the boundaries, and they bought their house just so their kids could go to that school. So I don't know if you all realize that, but people are smart enough to say, that's a great school, I want my kids to go there, so they buy a house in that neighborhood. And then things change. But
I have one other question.
go ahead, Dee.
The charter schools. They're semi-private. Who funds them?
Charter schools are public schools. They receive money from the state, not from the school board. Is district sponsor, it's consistent with state statute, but the school board does not fund them. But they're public schools, so they get money from the state.
But wouldn't this money normally go to the public schools where our children go, which they're being denied this money? So I have, like I said, I've been in this race before, and it's either private or not. Private or not. You have a choice. That's a good choice. And there's a lot of people that can't afford a private school. So they send their kids to public school. Nothing wrong with that. I sent mine. They had a good time most of the time. They learned, but they learned not just because of what was there. They learned because what was at home. If you don't learn, if you don't go to school, if you don't apply yourself, you've got nothing. So, but that money gets taken away from every child and everyone paying their taxes when it goes to a charter school. So that's something I would really like someone to look into, that if they want these charter schools, and I've heard some good things about them. I've heard there's good academics and teachers go up for reviews, which probably wouldn't hurt to do in every school. Every teacher should be up for a review. This, what do they call it, where they're
Seniority or
tenured.
tenure?
What is that? Just because you have so many years in, you're irreplaceable now. You can't go. Well, if you're not doing your job, you can go out to any job out on the road, whether it be construction, electricians, plumbers, whatever. If they're not doing their job, guess what? They're gone. They'll find somebody else to take their place. So that's something else that really should be looked into. Thank you.
All right.
Go
Go ahead.
I just
Sure.
want
I was going to actually open to the public and come back to us.
to, okay.
You want to go first?
Yeah, just
Okay,
just
go ahead.
quick. So you had mentioned a couple times that the capacity of the schools exceeds the student population, and that's created some issues as far as getting funding from the state. Is there any plan long-term to get away from the portables? I mean, is there a goal? Is there a year? Is there something you can tell us along those lines?
Like I said in the presentation, we have a comprehensive process every single year. The board is called a transition plan. The plan, if you go to the school board's website under the capital budget department, you're going to see a link. It's pretty detailed, plan, and the board funds it. The board is really making a lot of, even some of the portables right now, we're putting covered walkway based on some criteria. So, and part of that criteria is the portables that are less than 20 years old, that are pretty sturdy. So that's why I was trying to address the other commissioner in terms of pretty much maintaining. So we pretty much are looking at the portables, the one that are determined to be unsatisfactory, meaning not good for students to be in. They've been systematically gotten rid of. So that plan is a continuous plan. The portable number continued to drop from what we had before. So that's kind of where we're going. So because majority of our portables are over 20 years old, so we're getting rid of those portables and then retaining the ones that are more sturdier and less than 20 years old.
And when you get rid of portables, are they just gotten rid of, or are they replaced? Or a
They're
combination of both?
they're not replaced, because what's happening, like I said, we have excess capacity in the district. So this is part of the tools that we are using to reduce that capacity, eventually housing students in permanent capacity. So unfortunately, right now we're talking about charter schools. There's a House Bill 7069, which pretty much unfortunately, if you read in the paper, the school board just filed a lawsuit. There are 12 other school districts that have joined the lawsuit. The school board initiated our lawsuit because now we have to give part of our money from the capital millage to charter schools with barely any rules, which is going to take away money to maintain. So those are the competing interests. Right. And we're kind of trying to, ultimately, it's all about the students.
Right. Thank you.
I wanted to just add that when we say that the state will not allow us to build capacity, that also, they won't allow us to purchase new portables, because that's seen as capacity in their eyes.
Okay.
So we are not able to buy more portables to replace old portables.
Well, I kind of like that.
Right. So I just want to make sure you understood that.
Thank you.
Yes.
If we could open up to the public, if any public members would like to come up and ask some questions.
Oh, my. Well, this is the way I look at it.
State your name.
Mary Gay Chapels, and I have great-grandchildren. So I'm still paying taxes to educate everybody in the country. The bottom line is that we now have a lot of charter schools out here, of which I don't know that they're all in Pembroke Pines, but there's a lot of them over there. And there's a lot all over the county. I know that they have requirements. I know you have to get on the list. I know they don't take problem children. I know they don't take a lot of different kids that are normally pushed into the school system, into the public school system. Now, you have portables. Let's just take one site out there, Cypress Bay. It has a very high enrollment. It has a lot of portables. So does the middle school. Those who've been there since the beginning. The enrollment hasn't. The enrollment is increased. So if what you're saying is true, you're going to get rid of the portables, and what are you going to do with the overload of kids? Because the kids are growing. This area is increasing in the number of students. Evidently, it's going light in the east, but out here it's growing. So are you going to leave those portables because they're 100% capacity? And if you get rid of the portables, now you don't have any place to put those kids that were in the portables. So when do you add to the building, or you build another high school somewhere? Now, you built one out on 27. And I don't know what the capacity out there is, but I would imagine it's probably close to full. This one is loaded. And Weston is loaded. Western High School. Cooper City was built new. They took it down because it had contamination, the old building, and they built a new one behind it. They never missed a beat. I don't know if they have portables there or not. They used to. My point is that where do you get the funding if now you're funding a private school facility, which is your charter schools? Your charter schools are private, which is a rather interesting thing to begin with, because they're in business. Those charter schools are making money. Our public schools are in debt. Is this like the United States Post Office? Because the post office can't make any money. The price keeps going up. And the FedEx and UPS are paying very good wages, and they're making money. So what is the charter school doing that the public school isn't doing if they're so good? Because they're a private enterprise. I think they ought to be looking at that. They need to be looking at why they can't be as productive as a charter school if a charter school is really productive. Or how much are we subsidizing that private school?
A lot.
Thank you. So how come that money isn't going into our public schools and they haven't cleaned up their act in the public schools? I think it's the bureaucracy. They're tripping over one another. And I'm not here to offend you, but I listened to this presentation, and to me, it was keep your eye on the bouncing ball, because it was the same old, same old, same old. And there won't be any changes, and it'll be the same old
Got to wrap it up.
next
there.
year. Thank you.
Bob, any other public comment? Anyone else?
David Kaczynski, 6411 Holity Trail. Two issues that I was listening to that kind of scratching my head about had to do with, first of all, the students that are attending the schools from out of county, out of the area. I personally know that if somebody is to be moving to or claiming a resident, that homeowner has to sign an affidavit saying that individual lives in that home. And if these people are going to sit there and just say, hey, oh, we're just going to kick the student out, I don't think they're doing enough. I mean, I have a professional license. I can't sign an affidavit like that under good faith. I could lose my professional license. So I'm going to ask you, if you guys are going to be sitting there and allowing these students and just booting them out, do more. Second, the property. Sell it back to us. Sell it back to us. Southwest Branches doesn't want to be Broward County School Board's lapdog.
Yeah, I think nobody else is up, so hold on.
Yeah, former Mayor Jeff Nelson just called in. He was trying to make it here and he wanted to speak to this
Okay,
issue.
love to have him.
Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, Keith.
Okay, you're on speaker.
I appreciate it. Well, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. It brings back fond memories to have an opportunity to not only speak to you all, but to have an opportunity to talk about this issue. And coming from my perspective, which you all know, I oversee the facilities at the Cypress Bay High School. And I was listening to some of the conversations earlier, and I just want to give you a perspective from Cypress Bay. We're at about 160% capacity. That's what our issue is now. We currently have, and I heard, there was a comment about the condition of our portables at Cypress Bay. There's currently 3 crews working at Cypress Bay High School. One that's been there for 6 days because of significant black mold problem, trying to address that. We had a student just 3 days ago fall through the floor, and we have 15 or 18 outstanding work orders for significant floor issues, some of which are as much as 6, 7, 8 years old, and I think there's a few that are year-old. We also, as a result of our capacity issues, have run out of classroom space over there, and as a result of that, we are now conducting classes utilizing a portable at Falcon Cove Middle School because we have run out of space. So, with regards to the condition and the quality, and Mr. Bobadilla, who heads the whole department, is intimately familiar. He's been out there. Mr. Bays is intimately familiar because he's been out there. Gail Spear is intimately familiar because he's been out there. And needless to say, it's not a rosy picture. We struggle each and every day. One of the first things that I do in the morning is to find out the condition of those rooms to ensure that the teachers and students can be in them with regards to function air conditioning units and not additional floor issues, which would include concerns about the safety of those teachers and students because of the terrible conditions of the floors. It's a battle every single day. We have over 4,700 kids, and so the rosy picture that's being elicited on behalf of the district, especially as it relates to Cypress Bay High School, I can tell you it's not accurate.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff, very much. Appreciate you calling in and pitching in your perspective. Greatly, greatly appreciated.
Resources or others, listen, I'll give you an invitation to come on out and take a look and confirm, what I'm telling you. Like I said, Mr. Papadillo is intimately familiar. Mr. Bays is intimately familiar. Bill Spears is intimately familiar. It's obvious by what the information that you got, because it's not accurate. You need to be familiarized, because you need to come out and take a look so we can give you an accurate picture and depiction of what exists out there at Cypress Bay, especially as it relates to the portables and the deplorable condition of many of them.
Hey, Jeff, if you can hear me, I just have a quick question. Are you seeing the number of portables go down, or is it steady, or what's going on with that?
Sure. We actually, we're at 64, Steve, and just added 3 just last year because we were short. We actually had put in a request for 8 because we needed 8, and they ended up giving us 3, and they're obviously occupied. And then that issue, with regards to their location, we tried to talk them out of it because, you know, we're cautiously optimistic that sometime in the near future we're going to get a new building, but the new building doesn't have adequate classroom space and doesn't even replace the existing portables. But when they put them in this location, contrary to what we were recommending, now they're in the footprint of the new building and now have to be moved again at another additional expense to the school district. So if you're asking me, Steve, yes, we can even use more. And as I confirmed earlier, we are now using a portable. In fact, we use 7 portables at Falcon Cove Middle School.
Right.
6 are for storage, and 1 that is now our Hope class at 35 kids in a class times 8 classes.
Wow.
We're out of space. So anytime I have an issue also, we have no alternative classroom placement options. It's very bad shape out there, and it continues to get worse every day.
Wow. Thank you.
All right. Apparently you want to get up and respond. Go right ahead.
Not totally counter. And again, I totally appreciate the opportunity. Again, the level of service, this is the 3rd time we're trying to amend the ILA. It gives us the ability, because the oversight committee, the signatories, which you're one of them, voted to continue to maintain the ILA because it allows for the intergovernmental coordination to pretty much address the impact of development and other necessary, things we have to do to hopefully support our students. So this is a win-win for everybody. Like I said, again, there's a comprehensive process. If you go to the capital plan, on the capital budget link, you'll see the funding that the board had for this year. Next year, we're going to have it again. The current slide that's being shown right now, you see the 3rd bullet, the bond, because it's a local money, the state allows us to build permanent capacity. So we are replacing the portables at Cypress Bay at those 3 schools 1 for 1. It's the construction.
That's not a reduction.
No, we're replacing them.
Yeah, but I'm saying, that's not a reduction. You had mentioned earlier there's
a reduction. I'm sorry, Mayor, I don't want to talk over you. There's a reduction district-wide, which again is in the transition plan, that's in the capital plan, the district educational facility plan, the 5-year plan that's been approved. There's a district-wide reduction. Cypress Bay, Falcon Cove, and Flanagan are the only schools where we're doing the 1 for 1 through the bond, because we can use local money, not state money. So I will again take what the gentleman just said, the former mayor. I'll take that back. He mentioned Mr. Bays, who's the director for physical plant operation. Leo Barbadillo is the chief facilities officer. I'm going to take this back, rightfully so, and mention this to them. But I'm just going to encourage and totally seek your support. This is just to give this opportunity to allow this amendment to go forward, and the board is committed because it's in the 5-year plan. And we have a systematic, comprehensive process to reduce the portables.
Let me. Gary wanted to go first.
I just have a question, and this was brought up earlier, and I just started looking through all the material. Charter schools or public schools, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
How come there's no charter schools in any of this analysis?
In our backup.
Okay.
And I'm like,
the school board does not have the authority to regulate the charter schools. The school board can only give authority for them to operate. But we don't control their day-to-day operation. We don't control funding or anything. We don't account for any students who go there or how development impact the charter schools. They're not part of our development review process. So that's why they're not in presentation, because we don't have any control over that day-to-day.
No, I
operation.
understand the control point, but I'm looking at the population list. Why wouldn't, if these are public schools paid for with public tax dollars?
Why wouldn't be
why
part of the
wouldn't numbers
formula?
be in here? I'm not saying how to run it. I'm saying, or how to control it, or who's accountable to who, but the student population, I would think, would be pretty germane to this list.
We pretty much, our demographic and student assignment department maintains the data in terms of the charter schools, how many students are there, things like that. But they're not part of the measurement to determine an impact to a school when a development is coming forward. So they're not part of the interlocal agreement process because we don't have the ability, we don't have the right to do that.
Yes, because you measure them against the concurrency service area, which is the school boundary, and charters don't have boundaries. So they're not held to the level of service standard. When a development is coming in a specific area, we have to measure the capacity in that area for its impact against the development. And so since a charter school has no boundary, we can't measure its against that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I kind of get that.
Right.
Because of the no boundary, but it's still, there's a finite population of students, and that's got to affect the public's.
It does.
These numbers greatly.
It does in the sense that the charter school enrollment is taken out of, like, charter school students live in an area with a boundary. So when we're counting for the population of the school in that boundary, we take out the students that are not attending the schools in that boundary, which frees up the capacity in that boundary for development. So we're not we're reflecting only the students that actually attend the schools in that boundary, even though students from that boundary might be going to a charter school. So the capacity from the charter schools is accounted for in our public school system. They're just not, the charter schools aren't held to level of service standards because they're not a part of, they don't have a geographic area to measure it against.
Wow.
That makes sense?
Yeah, it does make
Okay.
sense. But I just want to make one last comment, then I'm going to try and keep my mouth shut from here on out. It's hard for me. But you all, I'm sure you realize this, you all are caught in a struggle of, you have a competitor. And, you look at almost any large organization, not picking on Broward County Schools, but you look at, the 70s, 60s, 70s, 80s, nobody could touch IBM. Not so much anymore. Sears was huge, not so much anymore. It's tough when you're the big guy to compete against the smaller guys that are up and coming. So I get that. You all are in a difficult situation. But you are competing because the longer the portables are out there, the longer the environment cannot match what a charter school can provide, the more students that are going to go to charter schools, the more voters that are going to be excited about charter schools, and the more difficult your position is going to become. And that's just the reality of it. And so I just will say one last time that now is the time that you need a definitive plan to get the public schools to where they need to be from an environmental standpoint so that you can stem the tide. I'm a firm believer in public schools. My kids went there. My wife taught in public schools for many years. And, it provides education for everyone, which can't be said about the charter schools. And so that is what we need. That is true public education. But we shouldn't have to sacrifice for public education. It should be the top quality education. And I know that a lot of the teachers out there are top quality. But now is the time. It's only going to get more difficult. Next year is going to be tougher than this year, and the year after that is going to be tougher than that. So I would just say that there needs to be more urgency. I understand it's a comprehensive plan. I don't mean this offensive at all, but that sounds very bureaucratic. It sounds very Broward County School to me. It needs to be a 2 or 3 year plan, to be honest with you, to get things turned around and get the students coming back to the schools, public schools. You all are in a tough spot.
Yes.
And you all do a great job. So I'm not beating you up, but I'm just trying to drive home a point that now is the time. Thank you.
Dee, go ahead.
Yeah. You're not dealing with the older generation anymore where, we don't want conflict. Oh, just go with it. No big deal. We did it. You can do it. You're dealing with the millenniums that are coming up. These kids are fighters. If I'm going to pay for it, I'm going to get it. And I think you're going to be fighting a tougher crowd down the road. So that's another thing to think of, that these kids won't take a back seat. And I can speak from experience. I have one that is just off the chart. She will fight just to fight. It's in her DNA. I don't know where she got that from.
Thank you for coming out.
You good, Dee?
Yeah, I mean, I'm ready if we're
Okay, well, hold
ready
on.
to
One
go.
other thing I want to ask. With all the influx from people from Puerto Rico, are you all making any adjustments for that, or what are you doing about that, or for that?
We,
Because I got to tell you, you got a lot. If they're not here, they're coming.
No, we definitely, unfortunately, Broward County is very welcoming. So there's a welcome center at one of our, facilities. And I think we have over 200 students from the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, some from Texas. So the school board is done, they've pretty much have taken steps to feel, make sure those students are welcome and, and prepared for additional influx if need be. So.
Okay. Go ahead, Dee.
Well, I don't know if this is the right time, but if it is, I would like to make a motion to approve this subject to our children here in Southwest Ranches being able to cross the big bridge. In other words, they should be welcomed back into Falcon Cove if they so choose, or into Cypress Bay if they so choose. That's another thing to consider. Because for quite a few years now, these kids live right across the street. I don't know who came up with this, but whoever did ought to be taken behind the back of the shed and talked to. Because it was heinous. I mean, the kids are right there. That's like their backyard or their front yard. They look at it every single day. And no, you can't go. So that would be my motion.
Second, then it just moved tonight. Okay.
I agree with you in spirit.
Okay.
I admire the motion.
One more shot, Steve. Come on, give me one more
I
shot.
admire the motion, but I'm not going to second it. But I admire, you're on the right track.
Okay.
Okay.
Council, just for the record, let's just read the resolution, title in, and then we'll know what you're voting on.
Okay.
We haven't gotten it.
A resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Southwest Ranches, Florida, approving the third amended and restated interlocal agreement for public school facility planning, Broward County, Florida, authorizing the mayor, town administrator, and town attorney to execute any and all documents necessary to effectuate the intent of this resolution and providing an effective date.
Mayor, if I may,
Go right ahead. Yeah.
I'll give it a try. I'll make a motion to deny the resolution.
I'm going to second it.
Any discussion on the matter? Any additional public comment? Seeing none,
Can I? I'm sorry.
go ahead.
I don't want to second guess the commissioners. I've heard, I've taken pretty good notes, and I will make one last ditch effort to, make, if you can give us, an opportunity, because like we said, I'm not saying you do everything every other city is doing, but it will be very helpful. The school board is on track it's a win-win. It's a win-win. And like I said, all your schools serving your community, it does well with both, with the alternate. So I took good notes. We're going to follow up, and we're pretty much going to do the best we can. Anytime I appear before people like you or developers, I always tell them it's all about the kids, because we are their parents. Even though we don't teach them, we are their parents. So I work on behalf of the school board, but then essentially I work for the kids because I'm older, So we're trying to do the best. I think it's going to give us an opportunity. So I really appeal to you. It's going to be very helpful. Give us another chance.
Mayor, if I will.
Go right ahead.
Chris, it sounds like you want another chance to come back with this item and this presentation. Is that?
Not really. I just, I'll appreciate a vote of yes. That's what I'm saying. And then we have taken the comments and, it pretty much is going to go all the way to the top, superintendent, and, and try to do the best we can. But again, it's just to give us a chance for a yes vote. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, so my understanding is the item stands as submitted.
Okay.
Subject to council.
It's a motion.
Okay.
Yep. Motion to deny. Call the quote. You want Gary? Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to make a comment.
Sure.
I made a motion to deny. I've got a second.
Yep.
That's not saying we can't bring this back up later on if they come back with something a little more tangible,
Well,
palatable.
I would prefer to make a motion to table this to the next meeting so that maybe we can get a little feedback on our feedback. Let's get a report back on how on your notes and how it was received. If there's anything tangible you can bring back to us based on what you've heard tonight. And I think you've gotten, some good positive feedback.
a lot of questions.
And so I don't want to make the motion to table yet because I know that cuts off everything. But that's what I'm leaning towards.
Okay, I'll rescind my denial motion. D, will you rescind your second?
You want to withdraw your second?
Well, wait a minute, Steve, now. My chance to get it.
Yeah, I don't want to make it yet, so you can.
No,
Let Keith jump
I
in
just
here.
want to tell you, legally, a motion to table trumps the motion to deny anyway.
Okay.
So you don't need to rescind anything. If Vice Mayor wants to make a motion to table and it gets a second, you vote on that immediately, up or down.
okay, that's good.
Did you want to? So as soon as I make that motion, then it's up or down vote. But do you want to make a comment before that?
No.
Okay, I'm going to make a motion to table to the first meeting.
There's only one meeting in November.
Yeah. Yeah. So our November meeting.
Okay. November 9th. Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. Call the question, please.
Councilmember Schroeder,
Yes.
Councilmember Fisickelli,
Yes.
Councilmember Jablonski,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bright Cruz,
Yes.
Mayor McKay.
Yes.
Thank you.
What a tough crowd, eh?
Thank you. No, we appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right. So November 9th. If you can bring us back some positive feedback, obviously, is what we're looking for, and some answers to some of those questions. And I would tell you it would mean a lot that if you could get former Mayor Jeff Nelson accommodated in Cypress Bay, that would probably come a long way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
They'll find out.
Okey doke. Public comment. Keith, you're up.
Now three? I saw two, I apologize. We have three public speakers tonight in this order. I'll call them out one time. Bob Hartman, Newell Hollingsworth, David Kaczynski.
Bob Hartman, 5441 Southwest 198 Terrace. I didn't want to get up here when they were here, and I didn't plan on spending any time talking about this. Do not offer anything up to help out our former mayor. It gets nothing for our kids. You know why this is all happening, Dix? You're not there. Robin Bartleman beat you, right?
Yes, she did.
She's the one who pushed us out of Cypress
Yes,
Bay.
she did.
Along with, what's the other woman who's over there? I can't think of her name, because they have two.
Oh, Lori Levinson's
Lori
still there.
Levinson, Rich, that's it.
Yeah.
You know, I've heard the same story every time they show up, every time they need an amendment. And I'm glad you need to get Runcie here. You need to get Bartleman here at large. Remember, she votes for everybody in the county. Donna Korn, the other at large, and Patty Good. Patty Good's supposed to represent our needs. Why wasn't she here tonight? She needs to hear this. These people, I felt bad for them. It's like we got a cat problem in town and the dog catcher showed up and we beat up the dog catcher. They're not the people.
Right.
Those are the people you need to be talking to. And what worries me, 160% at Cypress Bay, that's mind-boggling.
Yep.
It was already the largest high school in America. And that was at 140%. Now, what I worry about is the nice people on our school board, we start screaming and complaining, they bounder us out of West Broward, which is not over capacity. It's right in there. Because I go over there all the time. They bounder us out of there and send us to Western High or Cooper City High. They can do whatever they want. I go to the boundary reassignment meetings. We got them to stop 2 years ago, the last time they had these discussions. But those are the people we need to be yelling at. And when you start talking about the charter schools, here's the wonderful thing there. Jeb Bush started that experiment, 16 years ago now, if you remember? Yep. And our Florida legislature is owned by private universities and the charter school companies. I don't call them donors anymore. They're investors. They buy these legislators, and the legislators pay them back by relaxing the rules on them. What you guys may not understand is how many charter schools statewide go belly up over every year because there's no oversight. So now they're starting to sprinkle a little oversight. Well, the last session, that got shot down. This stuff is in not our newspaper. Sun Sentinel doesn't cover any of this anymore because they only have 4 reporters. But if you read the Tallahassee newspapers, you find out what's going on with these school districts. Most of the state has okay schools. You get into the poorer counties, they have lousy schools. Dade County, they have their problems. We have our problems. You go up to Palm Beach County, they have very good schools. Cypress Bay is in a class by itself. But West Broward is as good as any of their good schools up there. We're fortunate. We have good schools here. But they're trying to manipulate the whole state for a small group of company owners, and they're really messing things up. Now, when you listen to them, I agree. These guys ooze bureaucracy. There needs to be a message sent. One more minute.
Good.
There needs to be a message sent to Tallahassee that this school board, this school district, they need to dig it out and refill it with quality people because it's not working. And the same people get voted in. You know why? They don't cover this in the newspapers. People don't know. They only know their school principal. They know the guidance counselor that they have to deal with their kid. And that's their only engagement. I talk to my neighbors all the time about what's going on in the school board. None of them know. Their kids are all in these schools and none of them know. Anyway, thank you for an opportunity to vent. I didn't want to do it to them.
Newell?
Bill Hollingsworth, 199th Avenue. The FEMA pickup is very ambiguous, to say the least. And having looked at what they've picked up, I'm wondering how our town is ever going to look good again. Because where they picked up, it looks as bad as before they picked up, only the pile is smaller. Actually, there's a foxhole there where they took 6 inches of dirt out and took it with them. And we're very possessive of our dirt in this town.
New swell program.
Yeah.
Good answer.
What I'd like to know, and I've heard that, we're on our last pickup and it's going to be a couple more pickups and no more pickups, and you can't put anything green out, yet all of my trees that are on the ground are still growing and green. And so I'm like bewildered, befuddled, and confused. And I'd like some direction as to what is still happening, what is going to happen. And also, whether or not we ever got parity with Texas as to them paying 90% of the debris pickup and we paying 10%, or are we still stuck at 75-25? So I haven't heard anything on that. And I was just curious whether or not, you know, we have to pay 25% or whether we pay 10%. And I've heard another number kicking around. But I'd like, you know, some definite information from the administration or the council or whoever has it. Thank you.
Okey-doke. Who's next, Keith? That's it? Okay. Yeah, I don't blame you.
Good evening, Council. David Kaczynski, 6411 Holity Trail. Last night we had our Sunshine Ranches Homeowner Association meeting, and a couple of my neighbors spoke to me about a couple issues concerning our area. First, my neighbor that lives at 6011 Holity, her home is at the crossroads of Sterling and Holity. Anything more than a trickle of rain, her entire driveway in the front is flooded. And this is all on outside of her property area. She's had it continuously, and she'd like to have something done about that. And I said I would speak to the council, and maybe we can get something addressed with that. Second,
Dave, what was the address on that? I'm sorry.
6011 Holity.
Thank you.
Thanks. Second, there are, to date, 4 of the crossroad signs that have been missing. Some of them were on the side of the road, and then they disappeared. Hancock at Sunset, Hancock at Mustang, Holity at Sterling, Holity at Old Sheridan. And you know, I've walked around there, I've seen the signs missing, and then some neighbors said that it was on the side of the road and then it disappeared. So I'd just like to see what we get back to order in the town. Thanks.
Yep. Okay. All right, do we have any, let's see, who we have, any board reports? Seeing no board reports, we'll move on. Councilmember comments? Huh? We're good, no board reports, so. Go ahead, Dee.
Want me to go first?
Sure.
I would like to make a recommendation that, let me see here. I think it's Barbara Gonzalez. We have an opening on the Rural Public Arts Board, and I would like to make a recommendation that she get to fill that spot, if no one objects to that.
Nope, I don't.
Do we need a motion?
I'll second the motion.
All right.
Are you making the motion?
Yeah, she did. And
I made the motion. Freddie, second?
Okay, good.
All right. Any public comment? Seeing no public comment is closed. Back to us. Any discussion? Call a question.
Councilmember Schroeder,
Yes.
Councilmember Fisickelli,
Yes.
Councilmember Jablonski,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bright Cruz.
Yes.
Mayor McKay.
Yes. Okay. What else you got, Dee?
I don't know. I think I gave it all to those poor people that were here. I think I'm good.
All right.
I think I'm
Okay.
good. I do want to say one thing now. You know, I understand I missed quite a little fiasco little party here for little Jordan there, and I want to apologize, but I promise I still won't breathe on you yet. I was really, 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 really sick, bad. The worst I think I've ever been. And so to get disinvited was really kind of like, oh my gosh, I got disinvited. So, but kudos and mazel tov and all that, and hopefully it was wonderful.
It was.
It was amazing. And you belonged in the hospital.
Yeah.
But
Well,
besides that, Gary, go ahead.
Yeah, thank everybody for coming. I'll be brief. Just want to mention a few things that are coming up. Don't really have, it's just calendar events at this point. The Halloween at the barn is slated to be in the barn because
Weather.
it's a weather situation this Saturday night. It's supposed to have a subtropical system, I believe, come through here
Yep.
Saturday and Sunday. And so we're moving it underneath the barn, which was how the barn was designed, just to accommodate that with the wide verandas and the whatnot. So bring your candy and bring your table. And a lot of people are working on it over the next 24 hours to make it all successful. And then on the 9th, we have our next council meeting. I believe it's on the 9th. We're going to have the tribute to the veterans. It's right before Veterans Day, so I urge everybody to either tune in or attend that. On the 17th, we have a food truck event with the Education Advisory Board in Hawks Bluff at the Equestrian Park from 6 to 9. So it's a lot of fun, a lot of kids. And then on the 18th, we have the Parks Car Show at the barn area, which is going to be a lot of fun. We have a great deal of time with that, and you really see some beautiful classic cars. So I'd like everybody to make a note on their calendar and go forward with that. And just for giggles, the 5th is Sunday is Set Your Clock Back Day. So just thought I'd mention that.
Sunday?
No, the 5th.
The 5th, okay.
5th. Yeah. A week from this Sunday.
Cool.
So just wanted to make a mention of that. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Awesome. Steve?
Thank you, Mayor. Couple of things. One is Andy, maybe you can, in your comments, maybe you can address a little bit about the schedules for the pickups, the FEMA pickups and things. I know that is an area that there is some, and probably the single most active topic when I talk to residents is what is the schedule, and I know that's somewhat fluid, but anything that you can give us would be appreciated. As far as the pickup, the percentage, the funding of it, it is a little bit of a confusing number because there's not one number out there, but the number there's like the federal government pays different amounts for different types of services when FEMA comes in. The one that we're most concerned about is the debris pickup percentage, and that has been approved up from 75% to 90%, and the state of Florida is doing 5%. So at the end of the day, we will be paying 5%, the state will be paying 5%, and FEMA will be paying 90% for our debris pickup. So that's the good news there. The last thing, and the most important thing that I wanted to talk about was I had the distinct honor and privilege of attending and even judging the Mr. and Mrs. Southwest Ranches event this past weekend. And I got to tell you that, Councilman Jablonski told me last year, you missed an event when you didn't go last year. And you know what? He was absolutely right. That is an amazing, amazing event. I had the best time. We have such talent and such amazing kids in our town. And what really, I'm not joking here. What really inspired me out of that event was hearing from those kids what the environment that we all get to share here in Southwest Ranches means to them and how it's influenced their lives. I think sometimes, we do ourselves a disfavor of kind of tossing out that rural lifestyle a little bit too much, becomes a catchphrase. It's much more than that, and I know we all know that, but we need to be reminded of it every once in a while, that the environment that we have here for our kids to be raised in is very, very, very special. And when you go to an event like that and those kids tell you how special it is, to hear it firsthand is truly inspirational. It was a great event. It was a great fundraiser, but it was also truly inspiring to me, and I appreciate it. Thanks.
Freddie, you got anything? No, you're good? Okay. A couple of different things. First of all, the Dolphin game starts at 8:30. Just reminding everybody. 8:25. Okay. So there's a couple of different things. We're going to address I guess that's going to be coming up, so I can't jump to that now. The calendar. But I guess we'll just get rocking. So I'm gonna go ahead and pass it off, not have anything to add. And Keith, you're up.
You better tell him.
Thank you, Mayor, and it's definitely.
Hold on.
Did you want to bring up an MPO issue?
I was gonna actually wait till next meeting and probably do that. I don't think we got that worked out yet.
Okay.
I discussed it with her and she wasn't sure.
Okay.
So we'll wait.
No, I think we could just do this tonight, get it over with.
Rewrote the resume.
All right. Well, on the
So go
MPO issue, I was going to replace Reddy because he's been doing it forever, and he's done such a stupendous job. But I actually tried to throw you under the bus while you were gone, but Steve protected you.
Well, I'm disappointed you did that, Doug.
All right. Well, I'm not here to lie about it. So, anyway, what's your position? You don't want to do it. I'm not. They try to get me to do it. And I said I can't do it. So,
Well,
what's your thoughts there?
it's not exactly something that I think I would enjoy doing, I mean, roads and whatever. I've had to live with that stuff for 40 years with a man talking about the roads and everything.
That's why I thought you'd be so good.
Yeah, right. I'm going to take this. I'm going to give you all a break here because this is the end of October. So everything sunsets, you know that, right? So I'm going to take this. But my recommendation.
This is for 4 years.
No, it's not.
I was told it was.
No, you weren't told that, you ever. I'm going to take this and I'm going to do it because I think that our town needs to have representation there. It is a very important thing. Whether or not I can come back with good information from you, I don't know because I do not take shorthand. And I am going to be 65, so there is memory loss. But I think I'll do that with the exception that I think this is something we should rotate. I think everybody should take a whack at it. If for some reason you can't be at a meeting, then,
They don't have alternates in this case. I inquired.
They don't, but if you're a council member, from what I understand, whether you're on there or not, you can attend. So let's just take, for instance, and say that it was Gary's turn and he couldn't go. So he could let Andy know and I could attend. There's nothing to say that. But that doesn't exclude you, Mr. Mayor. You also can. The
dilemma is that if you're appointed and you accept it, you're on the board and you can't talk to any of them like you can't talk to any of us unless you're here in this forum like this or a public meeting somewhere.
Okay.
Where we can talk about stuff. So it eliminates you from discussing any of that information with any of those people on that board. So the advantage that I find by not being on that board is I can communicate with all the people on the MPO and not be breaking any rules or regulations and be looking to get support when not behind the scenes. So that's that's how we were able to get the park and ride done.
Right.
And that's how I want to move forward if I could in stopping these additional traffic lights and whatever other stuff they're up to.
So this is really good. So if I don't quite come back with all the information that we could possibly use to help the town, like I said, I think the representation is good, then I know that you can go out there and do this, and you should be able to come back with whatever I don't.
I would say that's fairly accurate.
Okay, so then I accept.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So do we got to appoint her, make a motion to appoint her?
Done.
Done?
Done.
Okay.
She's agreed.
Unless somebody else wants it.
No, I don't think so.
Safe there, or you're unsafe there.
All right. So that's taken care of. Thank you very much, Dee.
For all the years.
Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Freddie,
Freddie.
thank you for all you've done with the MPO, because we wouldn't have where we are today if it wasn't for you on that MPO, buddy.
That's
So
right.
we appreciate that.
There's
Thank you.
going to be some big shoes to fill, and I'm not quite sure I can do it, but I'm going to try.
Yeah, I just need to chime in here with something I was going to mention earlier, and somehow the whole thing just slipped my mind. You know, I'm over 60, so I get an elderly discount. The MPO you're mentioning and the traffic light. There's a meeting at the Hampton Inn.
Yep.
DOT. Andy, I don't have the date. I was just looking for it. If you could mention that, and I know you're.
Comments.
You don't have it? Okay.
We've got
it's
it.
somewhere on my phone here, and I'm trying to find it. And
I try to look forward to it. In the meantime,
I think it's the 19th of November.
Keith and Legal's up, I think.
Yeah.
All right, I'll talk slow as possible. So
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. First off,
You got to, by the way, address that meeting we all went to, because they want to know about it.
I'm happy to.
Okay.
It's hard to follow everything that's already occurred tonight, quite frankly. Andy, you threw the biggest life preserver I've ever seen, and he threw it back to you. And that was quite amazing to witness. It's been an interesting week and a couple of weeks, and sometimes real life is much better than fiction, and this is certainly
One of them.
been these last 2 weeks. Starting today was the deposition of Sam Gorin in the Pembroke Pines Southwest Ranches litigation. We worked with them for about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. Of interesting note to me is, of course, how much they pay their city attorney. And I'll be bringing that back to you in the near future. I want to honestly tell you, because it's amazing when you think, every city has the same legal, meaning that, there's the same resolutions, the same ordinances, same number of litigation. When you're operating a city, everyone has almost the same. When you go through it, it's almost the same. So the current contract right now at their city is roughly $85,000 a month guaranteed, not hourly, guaranteed straight pay $85,000 a month, plus $205 an hour for everything else. And everything else is litigation, resolutions, anything that you can think of is the else. So he gets $85,000 a year just to sit on the dais. $85,000 a month to sit on the dais, okay? So that leads me to part two, okay? And that is, when we came before you at the last meeting on last 2 Thursdays ago, we had found out by accident that individuals were attempting to de-annex our town, a major portion of the town, much larger than we even realized at that time, and to incorporate it into the city of Pembroke Pines. It was not only the city of Pembroke Pines who attempted to de-incorporate the 46 acres that they purchased in the town, but they also got the Bergeron family to attempt to de-annex all of their properties in the town, and they also got the Weekly families to attempt to de-annex all of their properties in the town. Most of the lots were not even contiguous to one another. It was hodgepodge of every lot out west in the new commercial district that you created, which you bent over backwards to create this new district to try to increase the tax base to help individuals, to nonetheless, 4 months later, have a major issue come before the Broward delegation. Now, I want to explain this for a second so that everyone understands it. Pembroke Pines submits a bill to de-incorporate about 160 acres of the town, more or less. Submits a bill to the Florida delegation to de-incorporate us, and we find out by accident, okay? The Broward delegation, the head of the Broward delegation, not the elected, the chair of the Broward delegation that we pay their salary, the actual person in charge of the Broward delegation, didn't even think to pick up the phone to call us to tell us that a bill's been submitted to de-annex 160 plus acres of the town of Southwest Ranches, which is just amazing if you think about it, absolutely amazing. So we quickly played catch up, to find out what was going on and what was occurring. To make a long story short, Andy and the mayor went super early to the delegation meeting, called me at about 12 o'clock, said, you got to come now, to which I drove down there. And we worked probably for 3-4 days behind the scenes, doing what we needed to do to get their bill defeated in front of the Broward delegation. Now, that was not without them hiring Ron Book, the Bergerons group, the Weekly group, the entire City of Pembroke Pines group with their mayor there and a slew of legal counsel like I've never seen before attend a Broward delegation meeting to de-annex our town. I can guarantee you that there was no doubt in their mind that they thought they had the votes to de-incorporate us. I can guarantee you that I don't even believe our elected officials, the ones that represent our community, I think they were voting for Pembroke Pines on this item. I think 100% our representative and our senators would have voted for Pembroke Pines on this item. There's no doubt in my mind from what I heard from behind the scenes. So the reason why I'm telling you all this is because, it's hard to imagine the constant threat to the lifestyle that we have here. And unless the town, and quite frankly, I without even saying this, at some point, some of us aren't going to be here anymore doing this every day. And if the town does not develop the necessary financial means to have a pool set aside for defense of the rural lifestyle, it's going to be taken, because there were a bulk of representatives and senators who were sitting there and saying, I agree with Mr. Weekly, I agree with Mr. Bergeron, why shouldn't they be able to maximize their value on their property? Without any understanding at all that their property was being preserved for the rural lifestyle. Best comment I heard the whole day was when Pembroke Pines got up there and said the loss to the town is de minimis, it's only on the tax rolls for $5,000. To which I got up and said, it's agriculturally exempt. They weren't even being honest about the fact why it was on the tax rolls for such little money. But they almost had it. They almost had the vote before our Florida legislature, our local delegation, to just take, 160 plus acres of the town of Southwest Ranches. It was a crazy day. The mayor spoke very well, Andy spoke very well, but it just goes to show you how this will be a nonstop battle, forever, of attempts to harm the town. Now I'm going to say part two, which Andy is going to yell at me later for saying. A lot of communities has agreements with their vendors that basically says, if you ever become adversarial to us, you're no longer our vendor. We've never had that problem in 17 years to say that to anyone. But after what happened to us this week, I am strongly recommending to the council to immediately put out the Weekly contract for rebid and the Bergeron contract for rebid, because for us to spend as much money and time and energy and effort to defeat their activities of trying to destroy the town, they don't deserve to be getting money from the town of Southwest Ranches. So it's something that I'm highly recommending and something that you all should speak of. So it was a very long week, very long week. I hope Andy chimes in. I called him on Thursday? On Friday morning, I called Andy and he said he couldn't even move. He was so physically exhausted from dealing with this issue to protect the town. And special thanks to Senator Farmer, who, amazing, not our senator, Senator Farmer, who became the chair of the delegation and said, I'm not allowing this issue to go forward at all. And he's the one who helped block it. So true special thanks to him, because without him there, it was going for a vote, and it was going to be close. It was going to be really, really close. So I have a lot more to say, but I know there's a Dolphin game, Mayor, so I'm going to let Andy chime in on both those issues.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. It was absolutely an exhausting day. I got there about 9 o'clock. They had a 9 o'clock start for the day. They didn't get started till about 9:30. Their agenda called for the public bill hearings to be held at 3:45 or earlier.
We were the last.
They started on them at about 11 o'clock. So that's when we called Keith and said, you might want to come over here. They said they were going to stop for a 10-minute lunch break. They were going to go in the back, get their stuff, bring it back out front, and just take a working lunch and continue through it. So we couldn't leave. Their working lunch break turned into about half an hour before they restarted. And when they restarted, they were about halfway through the local bills. Then they started on other testimony on other things. So they didn't call our issue until about 3 o'clock. The mayor and I left to get lunch at about 4. It was
4:30.
Yeah, it was quite a long day, but it was I guess a joy to come out of it on the positive end of it where we did. As far as Keith's other impassioned issue or pitch to you guys on a policy issue, ultimately that's up to the council on what you choose to include in contracts going forward. And I don't necessarily disagree with his suggestion on the contract. As far as the business of the town, that's obviously something that's up to the council, and I'm not going to debate that here, certainly not with the town attorney on the dais this evening. I've talked to you all about that individually, and it's something that you'll be able to talk about, certainly going forward. I have a few other things on my list, Mayor. If I may, first, I'd like to call up Town Engineer Rod Lay, who can touch on, because he has more of the latest and the greatest on the debris collection. I know he's going to be able to touch on that. I think Mr. Hollingsworth has questions answered, because I think he caught Rod in the hallway before, but there may be some additional questions, and obviously you and the public would need to hear that. So, Rod, if you would. Thank you.
Thank you, Town Administrator, Mayor and Council. Rod Lay for the record, Town Engineer. Just trying to make sense a little bit of what's going on with the debris pickup. There's a lot of different moving parts going on with that right now. So essentially what we're trying to do right now is coordinate with our debris hauler, coordinate with our monitors to ensure we get as many vegetative pickups as we can. As of today, we don't have a concrete determination on whether or not we're going to get a third pass for just strictly vegetative pickup. So what we're trying to do is position ourselves to have our debris hauler get specific types of equipment to get a lot of the really big tree trunks and stumps out of the way, because we're identifying a lot of issues where there's limited right-of-way where residents just can't put any additional material out in the right-of-way. So what we're hoping for is that we can get that stuff taken out. And once we get it taken out, then residents will be able to go ahead and put more material forward, and then the monitors will be able to tell us, yes, you guys qualify for a third vegetative pass, and we can move on from there. If that's not the case, if we kind of go forward with that, and the monitors still decide that we don't qualify for a third, we're most likely going to go straight to a C and D, which is a construction and demolition debris pickup. And then at some point, we'll determine when we're going to do just the final pass. So again, it's a lot of moving pieces, a lot of information about, you can't put too much green stuff out there. You can't put certain commingled stuff. So I know it's been complicated. We've been doing the best we can to kind of disseminate that message and spread it out to all the residents and make sure that we get a pretty clean operation going. But it's been pretty difficult, but I think we're moving in the right direction. I think we're getting close to finalizing this operation.
And when you say a final pass, you're talking about the large stump and
correct.
The big stuff.
And it kind of depends on the scheduling. Like if we can get the equipment to do that in first, right? So the thought is if we can get that in now, they're going to go in, take a lot of the stumps, take a lot of these trunks, and then allow residents to put more stuff. So a lot of that first pass material will be taken out. So if the first pass material is then taken out, residents put more stuff, then it gives us a better chance to qualify for a third pass of strictly vegetative. So then we'll be able to go ahead and do that, and afterwards we can do a C and D pass after that.
So I guess, this is the single most common question that I get from residents is what is happening. So I understand what you're saying. I think I understand what you're saying, but I'm less clear now, to be honest with you, than before. And I think that's probably because it's a fluid situation. But my understanding was that last pass was going to be the big stuff. So you're saying that may be up front. So I guess my question is, okay, so if we go have a pass with the big stuff and they take the big stuff earlier on, is there going to be, can they put more big stuff out there, or is that the one and only pass for the big stuff?
Our intent would be to have another additional pass to haul bigger material. So once
the last pass is going to be to haul the larger, I mean, there may be one before that, but the last pass
I'm not clear. Yeah, it's, and I'm sorry, I'm not doing the best job of explaining it. Give me another chance to try to do it. The way we're going to do it initially, right? We're going to do all our vegetative passes first. So it's going to be strictly the loose vegetation that was going to be taken care of. After that, normally we'd go into a C&D, which is mixed debris, the trash bags, and a lot of the construction and demolition debris. After that, they would do the final, just big stumps and stuff like that. But we're finding that because we're unique, and this is kind of why it gets a little bit more complicated, we have a lot of properties that just have so much space, so much acreage, and so much foliage, right? That a lot of residents just can't put all the material out at one time. So we're trying to work within the parameters that we got, but try to be a little bit more flexible to those residents to say, we understand that you have this issue, and we're trying to maybe manipulate the normal standard process to ensure we get an additional vegetative pass. So it's kind of it's thinking a little bit outside the box to try to get more an additional vegetative pass so residents can put more stuff out. It's still not defined as to whether we would only get one of the really big stump passes or not. Like I said, it's still kind of a working fluid situation, and we should know here in the next, hopefully by tomorrow, on a couple of different determinations to help us kind of finalize that schedule.
Thank you, Rod. All right, just a couple other things, a couple of quick ones and then one a little bit longer. On behalf of Town Financial Administrator and I, we want to let you all know that we have activated the town's line of credit towards the collection costs. Marty has applied for immediate need funding, but the governor has declined to authorize that within the state, which puts us in a position of it's 100% cost recovery, which means we need to lay that money out and recover that. So while we have some money in the solid waste fund, we've activated our line of credit just to make certain that we're, from a cash flow standpoint, we'll be able to continue. We certainly have enough available. There's no issues there, but I just want to let you all know that we've activated that line of credit. There was some discussion at the last meeting about the I-75 exchange. I got the message, the information the council member Jablonski referred to. It's November 16th at the Hampton Inn at Volunteer in Sheridan at 5:30, from 5:30 to 7:30. I'll email that information out to all of you to make sure that you have that. And for the November 9th meeting, we'll be working on a resolution that I discussed with you all individually, basically urging the FDOT to solve the issues of the traffic flow into Weston, westbound on Griffin Road, turning onto Weston Road there at the light. Solve that problem, because that's the biggest problem. There are safety issues in what they've done before. Basically, don't do anything else until you solve the biggest part of the problem. So we're working on a reso that will allow you guys to, put your signature on that and go forward. And that's something that you'll certainly be able to present to them at that workshop on the 16th. The last item I have, this is a little bit more of a fun one. I know that you guys always think I have all the answers when you have questions. And since this is not my review tonight, I will confess to you that's not always true. In order to do what I do and to try to do it well, you rely on your staff. And we have, as you all know, we have a great staff. But there are two employees in particular who I'd like to ask to come forward this evening. That's Emily and December, if you would be so kind. When I need to know something, and it doesn't really matter at this point in time when it's happened in the history of the town, these two are outstanding. They're my go-to people. They know what happened. They know why. They know who was involved. They have done just a tremendous, tremendous job. They have, as they stand here tonight, been town employees for 10 years, although they were both involved with the town and servicing the town long before that. So I do have for them this evening, I would like to present to them, I have plaques for you. We have flowers for you. We have proclamations for you that I'm going to ask Russell to read in a moment. And here's the most important thing. You're both also getting an extra day of PTO to be used this year. Russell, would you read the proclamations, please?
Sure. Whereas December Mia Laurentano was officially hired by the town on October 1st, 2007 to oversee the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space, or PROS division of the town after serving previously on a contractual basis. And whereas over the years she has successfully overseen the development of several park projects, including Sunshine Ranches Equestrian Park and Country Estates Fishing Hole Park. And whereas in alignment with the town's mission to protect the rural lifestyle while preserving the natural environment, her fierce advocacy on behalf of the town's fauna and flora have resulted in the town receiving important recognition, such as our designation as a tree city by the National Arbor Day Foundation, and the impending certification as a wildlife-friendly community from the National Wildlife Federation. And whereas December takes her advocacy of the environment beyond mere words as she works to educate others on the importance of nature's balance through efforts such as Water Matters Day. And whereas during her career, December has expanded her knowledge and achieved certification as both an arborist and a park and recreation professional. And whereas over her more than 10 years with the town, December has worked tirelessly to enhance the aesthetic beauty of the town by employing a hands-on work ethic in all phases of plant and tree maintenance, often watering new plantings herself, to ensure that the town looks its best. And whereas December met and married the love of her life, Brian Haynes, while in the town's employ, which gained her town family another member. And we are so proud to see her personal and career growth in the more than 10 years of service she has provided to the town. Now, therefore, the mayor and town council of the town of Southwest Ranches, Florida, do hereby proclaim October 28th, 2017, December M. Laurentano Haynes Day.
Are you kidding me? That is really crappy.
Talk to Andy. I asked him if I wanted to talk to. They get a half day.
Surprise. That's like as bad as I've ever seen.
No, because we did it with the military heroes, and you chided me then. Okay, the other proclamation. Whereas Emily Suzanne McCord's relationship with the town began in January 2002 as an administrative assistant with the firm then employing the town administrator, and whereas she then served as a grants and programs manager consultant from June 2003 to June of 2007, where she was instrumental in the town successfully receiving hundreds of thousands of dollars to acquire many of the open spaces enjoyed by residents of the town today. And whereas her successes in acquiring grant funding led to an offer of permanent employment as the community services coordinator, which she accepted in October of 2007. And whereas over the years she has expanded her knowledge to include capital projects, comprehensive planning, traffic engineering, emergency management, and geographic information systems, or GIS. And whereas past and current supervisors have lauded her extensive institutional knowledge as a tremendous asset, as she can be relied upon to explain the genesis of many town projects and past decisions made. And whereas Emily's dedication and commitment to her town of Southwest Ranches family is readily apparent in her work habits, as she often assists others, as she often offers to assist her coworkers with large projects. And whereas on October 11, 2014, Emily McCord married Michael Assetti, which gained her town family another member, and we are so proud to see her personal and career growth in the more than 10 years of service she has provided to the town. Now, therefore, the mayor and town council of the town of Southwest Ranches, Florida, do hereby proclaim October 28, 2017 as Emily S. McCord Assetti Day.
All right, guys, come on, go for a picture. Go ahead.
Come down for a picture.
Sierra, you want to say something first?
Yeah.
I'd like to say congratulations, girls.
Great job.
And you've done a great job. You deserve this many times over. Again, congratulations.
Yeah, just a word of thanks and congratulations.
Hey,
You
don't go
all-
sit down too far. We're going to come down for a picture.
Andy, you want my heels?
Make a note.
That's good. That's nice. All right, we're moving over.
Put the flowers in Andy's face.
Thank you all for all you have done. You really just contribute so much to the town, who we are and what we see.
We are.
And the enjoyment of it. It's just, thank you. That's all we can say is thank you.
Let's get down for pictures and we'll. Come back up. Come on over here in the middle, guys.
You guys kind of line up in the middle here. Imagine this is the middle.
There you go.
Today's a special birthday for everything. You guys step, Emily, step. Gary, you need to move too.
All right, turn sideways.
Face each other just a little bit. And you breathe.
All right, you don't have our height set, Joe. Good luck, right?
Yeah, Gary, maybe you can hold her proclamation. Where's your flag?
All right. We're trying.
Excellent. That's a nice picture. Hey. I didn't get the email. Thank you.
Right. We didn't think you ever didn't have it in your car.
I'm the, you know, the substitute, so give me a break, I gotta practice.
Yes, yeah, you did.
Congratulations, ladies.
Yeah, wouldn't that be fun? We could all sit back there.
Yeah. That's all I have.
Yeah, thank you again, ladies. You've done an awesome job for us in the town. We greatly appreciate it. You more than deserve what we're doing for you. And thank you again. May we get 10 more years out of you. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just want to jump in here. Andy, I'd like to, take the pulse of the rest of the council on this. I think, based on what happened with the de-annexation attempt and things of that nature, I think we should bring this back as a discussion item the next meeting, so we all have time to think about it, about the
contract?
future use of the individuals that were involved, the companies that were involved, and here's kind of where I'm going with it. I think they made a business decision that personally impacts us, and I don't think they thought it through. And I think we should discuss that, whether or not we want to continue with their contracts or not. And the only time we can talk about it amongst ourselves is up here.
That's right.
And I don't want to do a knee-jerk. I think it's something it's up for council discussion.
As a discussion item, I think it's a good idea.
I think it's a great idea. I would add one other topic to that discussion, and that is, and maybe it needs to be followed up with a shade session afterwards, but I think that we should discuss a potential strategy to what we can do to avoid this in the future, to be able to hear about these things sooner, and to possibly see if there's some things we can do from a legislative standpoint to
get some new laws passed.
Exactly, so that
I concur. Yeah.
I have a
would just add that to the
question.
agenda what to talk
Yeah,
about.
to add that to just as a discussion item, for that, because I think this is just going to be relentless.
It's
Every year.
10 years, it's going to
Every year you're going to do this. But I have a question for the town attorney. With them not notifying us, was that legal? I mean, when you're going to lose something out of your town, that's substantial.
I know that the town administrator had told me that he would like to write a letter. I think he just knows what my letter would say. So I gladly.
Well, maybe we'd sign it, but
Yeah.
we want to know
But,
what they did.
I will tell you, it would have never happened when Sandy Harris was in charge of the Broward delegation. She treated everyone equally, and if a bill like that would have been submitted, she would have forwarded it to us and said, just give you a heads up, this was submitted, yesterday. The fact that we were not notified about it at all, you know.
Whose job would it have been to notify us?
The person who is now in charge, not a Politico, the person hired to be the director, thank you, I forgot the name, the director of the Broward delegation.
Wow. So there's no consequences for that person for not notifying a municipality of something so great?
I will tell you that Frank Ortis started his speech by speaking about the fact that he serves as mayor for, what did he say, 150,000 residents, give or take? And that's how he opened up his speech.
And he puts his pants on one leg at a time, just like everybody else.
So it was a political maneuver that was 100% believed that they were going to be successful. And it was a direct attack.
Okay.
And it's so hard to imagine. I wish it was taped, and because, and I'm going to still see if I can get the audio. It wasn't only, and this is why I was so impassioned on this issue, because we fight all the time, you know, and they try things and we defeat it, and you know, it just seems to be the relationship over the last 17 years, and it just seems to be going. Where I was, and that occurred in 1997 legislation. I just reread it the other day. What bothered me this time the most was not the attempt of trying to de-annex us. It was what was said by individuals about why they wanted to leave the town of Southwest Ranches. And that's what bothered me the most. It was, and Andy, please correct me if I'm wrong, it was a lot of disparaging comments about our town and about the residents in our town. And that was one of the main reasons why, you know, I was so furious and had a difficult time containing myself.
Yeah, Keith, I think it would be very appropriate to get the audio to share that with council and others.
Yeah, I'd like to hear it.
If it was taped, I don't know if they tape it, but I will definitely request it.
So, at any rate, we're going to bring it up as a discussion item with multiple topics.
Good.
You know, circling all around this. I think that's, you know.
All right, I'm on board.
Okay. Yep. Good.
Freddie, you on board with that?
I'm
Okay.
on board.
Dee?
I agree.
All right. All right, so you're good? Anything else? Dee, was there anything else you wanted to bring up that you forgot before we move on? I thought there was something else you said you wanted to.
I
Okay.
can't remember.
We'll come back to it if you want. All right, resolution number, well, we did that already, so we're number 9.
A resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Southwest Ranches, Florida, approving the Town Council meeting schedule for the calendar year 2018 and providing for an effective date.
I'll make a motion. Second.
Any public comment on this matter? Oh, there you go, Dias is over there. Oh, okay. All right, seeing no public comment is closed. Back to us, any discussion on the matter? No discussion? All right, call the question. Hold on, what? Go ahead.
Mayor, you had proposed an alternative.
Oh, excuse me. I was doing a couple of things at once. We had this discussion, I don't know, 4 months ago or a while back about changing the calendar a little bit. I think we're all on the same page as far as the residents and giving them an opportunity to speak and coming out and whatnot. So we're all on that same page. But I think we're also on the same page that most of the people that are active, involved, that come out or have issues, call us on our cell phones all the time, or call town hall or whatever can reach us. So I think our communication and whatnot and are in touch with the community is pretty good on a regular basis. So I would ask that we change our calendar, except when we were required to have them 2 times a month meetings, to once a month. And reason being is sometimes we have no business. I don't know if it was 3 or 4 meetings, Andy, past year, that we had literally maybe one item on the agenda, and sometimes none. And I was on board, you know, with everybody having meetings, having people come out, And, once in a while we get new people and, I know everybody's attitude, if it's just one, it makes a difference. And I get that. And I think we're all on board with that kind of stuff. But I think, I know I do, and you guys are pretty darn good at it as far as communicating to the public, making sure they have numbers they can reach us by and call us, and getting back and returning phone calls and whatnot. So I would tell you that, in my opinion, that we should go to once a month, except where the calendar calls that we have to have it to. One of the comments I said during the budget time, because we're having the meeting anyway for a budget or discussion, make that a meeting. So whether it's a budget meeting or not a budget meeting, in moving forward. So I would like, does everybody have this, or Andy? Or do you have it to pass out?
Yeah,
or what?
I believe Russell attached that to everybody's package.
Okay, you have it, okay.
There's an Exhibit A, which is what
The
was
only-
originally
the
in
only
the
other-
book, and then
Yep.
there's an Exhibit A that says Mayor McKay proposal.
Okay,
That's
so
highlighted.
on that one, we've got to add a date, though, November 8th, but we have to add November 15th. Is that correct, Marty? Or is that for this month?
Thank you,
Next-
Mayor. The request is to continue with once a month, but just the third week of the month of November to the 15th to allow
So
enough
change
time.
it from the 8th to the 15th? Is that
Yes,
what that
sir.
is? Okay.
Yes, Mayor.
So on my recommendation or suggestion, change it from November 8th to November 15th for a meeting date.
It was, I think it was just laying up here.
So is this your motion to,
Well, I can't make the motion. Somebody else needs
Well,
to make.
there's
Yeah,
already
but
a
you've already
second-
got-
there's
you've
already
already
a
got
motion
one.
and second on the floor.
on
there
the
is,
floor?
okay.
Yeah.
We're in discussion, and we got.
So we're in
public
discussion of that
comment coming
motion.
up. And there's a lot
Of
to
the
discuss.
old agenda, or
Yeah, the old.
of the old agenda every 2 weeks?
Correct.
Okay, all right. So there's a motion.
So
yeah, we'll
let me,
go through it, Andy.
I mean, do you want to speak? I would like.
Well, I definitely want to speak on the first motion.
Yes. So
And I'll dovetail that into what Mayor is pronouncing.
Hey, we're
Yeah,
missing
yeah,
that
we
Miami
gotta vote on it.
Dolphin
It's already
game.
First and a second.
Yeah.
Whether it's up or down.
Okay. The first comment is, okay, the difference between the two schedules is you're looking at 8 months. We already have 3 months of one
Of
meeting.
one, yeah.
Of one,
one.
and then 1 month where it's imperative that we have two, that's September because of the budget.
Right.
So we're dealing with the other 8 months is really what we're talking about here. Reducing them, or keeping them consistent with two times versus
Once.
one time. I think I've always been an advocate of the twice a month whenever possible because we don't take any months off. That's why we went to the 3 months at once a month. I'm getting a little tongue-tied here, and I apologize. But I really think that this is part of our job. This is what we do, where we need to be here to hear the public so that they know that they can come in. Now, you're right, we're 100% right. We all go to the HOA meetings. We all, sometimes we're 4 nights a week. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of stress. But I really think this is part of our job, that we need to be here for those 8 months, at least twice a month. If there is no agenda for a further meeting, or there's something extraneous coming up, and off the top of my head, I can't think of it. I think the only time that we would to decide if we should cancel a meeting would be at a first meeting, because I think people need to rely on this, even if whatever their concerns are, for this. And I'm trying to think of the right word. I just think it's part of our job. Yeah, I think it's what we do, and it kind of defines us. And there's another thought cycle I had right here, and I'll turn it back over to Steve, and if I could allow to come back to it.
Sure. Ultimately, when we're done, I'm gonna open to the public.
Perfect. Yeah, one of the things that I think overall, the town and the council overall, I think, does a pretty good job, as Mayor, as you said, that communicating with residents. I don't think any of us have been shy about putting our cell phone numbers out there and, taking calls whenever the calls come, and trying to work on whatever issue comes up and kind of building relationships. We're a small town, and that's what it's about. But I also feel like probably one of the single most common complaints that I hear from residents is, oh, I didn't know that was going on, or why didn't you communicate that better, or why didn't you let us know about that? And the reality is that it takes a lot of different channels of communication
To get the information.
to get the information out. And a conversation that I have with a resident, or I have with 4 or 5 residents, in communicating whatever it is, whether it's FEMA pickups or whatever it happens to be, some event that's coming up, can't match a comment that any one of us would make in this meeting and goes out onto Comcast and now YouTube, where you can go out and see it whenever you want. That's a great communication tool. And so I think more communication is better than less communication. So for that reason alone, I would definitely favor staying with the 2 meetings. But the most important reason to me for having the 2 meetings is that it's critical in my mind that there is an open dialogue between the residents and their representation up here. And that is something that they don't have to wait more than 2 weeks to stand up there and have them, and it's different to hear it one-on-one over the phone versus saying it at that lectern there, and having it, whoever's here to hear it and to know that it's going out to the town. It's they need to be able to have that ability to voice their concerns, to get their concerns out there, and that, I do think it's part of what we signed up for when we took this position.
Can I jump back in?
Sure, go ahead,
Just
Gary.
my chain of thought came back to me.
All right.
Yeah, I've kind of looked at this for the last 4 months since it was a discussion item. And one of the things, the only people that I think a reduced schedule benefits is the people sitting up here. We don't save any money. Just everybody's salaried out there. $20 for the lights. It's I don't want to say a class, but I mean it's a group. We're the only people that really benefit from the reduction in the meeting schedule. So I just wanted to add that in there, and to me I didn't sign up to reduce communication. I signed up to maintain it and make it even better. So I just want to throw that out there.
Mm-hmm. Dee?
Well, there's kind of like 2 sides to it. In some respects, if there is nothing on the agenda, I don't understand why we can't call it early enough to say we have nothing. I mean, literally nothing. So just to sit here and listen to, 2 or 3 people, and it's not that what they have to say doesn't matter. But if you're getting these calls saying, I don't understand, why wasn't I informed? Well, why aren't you at the meetings? You wanted them. You thought it was a good idea. And I do tell people this a lot. I say, why don't you come to the meeting? Just come to one. I promise you I'll get you hooked on more. If you come to one, you'll come to another one. You can't even get them to come out. The lines of communication anymore with Gary or Doug or Steve or Freddie, whoever it is, whether it's Andy or part of the staff, is incredible anymore. You're constantly saying your phones are ringing, people are calling. So they are getting their message across in that respect. I kind of like the idea of the once a month. I know it was our policy to set up 2, and I don't really have a problem with it because in the past we have canceled meetings or said that, there's nothing on it, we're going to put it to the next to the next meeting. I would like to hear Freddie's thoughts on this and what you think about it, Freddie.
I'm definitely for 2, because, sometimes something happens the first meeting and the guy didn't make it. But then he knows he's got a chance on that second meeting. So I think that it's cutting the people's chance to let us know what's going on, So I'm for 2.
Okay.
All right, let's hear from the public.
Noel Hollingsworth, 199th Avenue. I am definitely for 2 meetings. And two reasons. One, the public input. And that is very necessary. To be able to speak to all of you simultaneously instead of calling Steve on the phone and Doug on the phone and Gary on the phone and spending, 2 hours saying the same thing over and over as a lobbyist to each one. The other reason, and I think the more important reason, is the only time you guys get to talk to each other. The only time. Unless you have a special legislative meeting in private or something like that. It's the only time you can sit there and Steve can say, I have this idea I'd like to throw out. We've got the overpass problem that's coming up. This happened at MPO. We need to address this. And we have had Freddie bring quite a few issues from MPO that affected us quite definitely, and Dee will now be bringing them to us. So we got to wait a whole month or maybe 2 months to hear about the problem. By that time, it's already cooked, boiled, delivered, and eaten, and digested. And we end up with the product. Anyway, but it's the only time that all of you guys get to talk about any problem or thought or what you would like to see this town or something happen, or talk to the administration, or put something forward to the information to the residents. I think that is the more important thing. And believe me, there has been many meetings where we have had one item on the agenda and we spent 3 hours with you guys talking, driving us out here absolutely and totally bonkers. So, back and forth. But you got something addressed and you got something accomplished that night that the rest of us thought you could do in 10 minutes, but what the heck. So, what I'm saying is 2 meetings are necessary because it's too long in between. Thank you.
Bob Hartman, 5441 Southwest 198 Terrace. I agree with all the comments made by the public. There's another piece, too. How many of you remember the meetings that you had to extend? What is it, 11 o'clock is the rule?
Yep.
Yeah. Those are marathons. If there were only one meeting tonight, you've gone through how many items, and it's 9:14. You'd be here till midnight. I kind of like our shorter meetings where they're only 2 hours, sometimes 3. But if you start trying to fit all those important agendas into one night a month, you're opening up the door for marathons again. And I don't think anybody enjoys those. Thank you.
David Kaczynski, 6411 Holity Trail. I likewise echo Newell's comments. Also, I have residents that call me and I speak to you almost every meeting about what their concerns are. I like to hear what Gary has to offer. Can't go a meeting without listening to Gary. And I'm sure that everybody enjoys hearing Newell every 2 weeks. Thanks.
No, that's what I said.
Dave's in favor of no meetings.
Well, I mean, if we could get rid of Pembroke Pines, I'm in favor of no meetings.
Yeah.
Anyway, I have to say that I would be in favor of one meeting. Now, I know you guys come to drainage and so on and so forth. Well, I go to 4 meetings, and in 1 week I did 4 meetings. And my husband wanted to know, was I really going to meetings? Because I'm never home. And if I come here twice, they have to call me and remind me that there's 2 meetings. And now I'm looking at the agenda to see what you're looking at. And a lot of times there isn't anything on it. It's more like housekeeping. And then I'm afraid not to come because sometimes while you all are up there talking, you decide you're going to pass something. And we don't know anything about it. So I'm not in favor of 2 meetings. If your agenda is as light as it's been for the last year, other than all of the stuff that Keith has been involved in, which you all have to be made aware of, but I'm sure that there's a method in which he can contact you all and keep you posted. What I'm saying is to come here once a month. I don't think that it's a catastrophe if we're not meeting every 2 weeks. If our agenda is not loaded. I mean, at 12 o'clock and then asking for an extension, that's a bit much. But if you look at your last year, this past year, you've really had 3 second meetings that didn't have anything in them. In fact, you had 1 meeting where 3 of you were here. So, I mean, it's something you all have to decide if you like communicating on those 2 meetings, but there's usually, Gesundheit, there's usually 2 or 3 of us here. And I will tell you, the activity in here with the residents has just, I won't say quadrupled. I mean, it's like Grand Central Station. And if they have a problem, the staff usually can handle it. So we don't have what we had before. We've kind of become teenagers now. We're out of the diapers, and we've kind of graduated to the teenage generation. Thank God. You all had a long, hard. Well, Freddie did. Long, hard pull for 17 years. I can't believe Freddie, 17 years. I mean, that's almost a lifetime. But I think you could get by with 1 meeting, and I think that it would benefit you.
Wrap it up.
Thank you. Bye.
Sandra Farah, 13840 Mustang Trail. My teeth are chattering, it's freezing, so I hope you can understand me. But I certainly welcome the opportunity to come here twice a month. I learn so much. I am sorry that more people can't find the time or don't make the time to come here, but I certainly find it very educational and I appreciate it. I appreciate all of you coming to our meetings on a regular basis in the homeowners associations, and I just think it's amazing. One thing I would say is in terms of getting more residents to come, and I know we have the same problem at our meetings, sometimes I find like if you things are published in advance, maybe in a way that lay people can understand and they'll read it, because sometimes I find like when you put the resolutions and it's very, sometimes people don't want to read all of that, but maybe a bullet point, what is going to be discussed at the next meeting to get more people involved. And coming here, because I don't talk a lot, but I listen and I learn and I appreciate that. And I think that's what I wanted you guys to all know that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. See no additional public comment closed. Back to us.
Mayor, just for the record, there's a motion and a second on the resolution on the agenda to be approved, but there's one caveat to it, and that is regardless of which way you decide to go, the November meeting needs to be amended to November 15th.
I'll agree to the amendment of November 15th to that.
Second it.
I guess no additional input. I would tell you this, a couple of things. With the communication in 17 years, we've had a lot of growing pains and different things. So we don't have as many issues, and there's not as much. I'd say the biggest crisis is Pembroke Pines and the issue we just came up with that we just fought off, and we'll have to continue fighting off. But the fact of the matter is that the other thought that you might be, I'm just throwing ideas out there, what if we started our meetings a little earlier?
No, I can't do that.
Okay. Listen, I just want to ask. I don't know. You know, I'm just sharing with people, you start earlier, get out sooner. I mean, staff's here, they're here all day, so they got to hang around from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock till the meeting starts that they're here for. I realize they sign on for that, and I get that. But I'm just trying to be more considerate and, you know, use our time, I guess, wisely. Because we're all accessible and we're all there for all the residents at all times. So, but okay, go ahead and call the question.
Well, can I say something?
Go ahead.
And don't take my head off for this, but I actually happen to agree with Noel to a certain point. I think that there are certain people in this town that want to be here. It's like they pay for the opportunity.
It's their movie night.
It's just it's a good time for them, and I can remember on more than one occasion sitting there and bringing something up, and you all going, well, we didn't think about that. That's something good. We're going to make a note of that, and we're going to bring that up. So maybe it would behoove to us to just keep our schedule at 2. And if for some reason something would come up, providing it doesn't look shady or anything like that, a meeting could get canceled. But I do, sitting here listening to everybody, and I know probably the staff would like to just come once a month, you know, but I have to agree with him. I think things do come up where we need to hear about it, and they don't need to wait a month. And we have talked about stuff that got passed right away, and they were like, well, when did that happen? Well, at that meeting. Well, I only missed one. Well, you know. So, at least you know where my head's at. Sorry.
Listen, no big deal. It is what it is. So, the only thing is that the tool was used on us last year when we had the schedule in play.
Yeah, I know.
That everybody knows the schedule, and I don't want to change it. So,
But
I don't
like-
see us canceling any meetings.
But like I always tell my kids,
I'm just sharing it with you.
it doesn't change things. The worst case scenario is we're still the way we were. It's not like it makes it worse or anything like that. So call it.
Okay, call the question.
Councilmember Schroeder,
Yes is for the existing calendar.
Councilmember Fisickelli,
Yes.
Councilmember Jablonski,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bright Cruz,
Yes.
Mayor McKay.
Yes. All right.
Okay.
On to the next one. Number 10.
A resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Southwest Ranches, Florida, approving the town holiday schedule for the calendar year 2018 and providing an effective date.
Motion to approve.
Freddie seconded.
She's second.
Mayor, Council, this is the exact same calendar as this year. It's for you for approval.
Yep, they made a motion, made a second already. Any public comment on our holiday schedule? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Back to us. Call the question, please.
Councilmember Schroeder,
Yes.
Councilmember Fisickelli,
Yes.
Councilmember Jablonski,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bright Cruz,
Yes.
Mayor McKay.
Yes.
Mayor, we have one emergency walk-on item as it relates to the storm. Essentially, what the issue is that currently the non-vegetative debris, the C&D mixed debris, is slated to have to be trucked to the Pompano Beach facility.
Too far.
Broward County has agreed to allow it to be brought to the Sterling Road US 27 facility, provided that we agree to enter into an interlocal agreement with them to be able to bring the debris to that location. Bringing that debris to that location obviously is much closer. It gives truckers a much better reason to pick up the debris within the town, and it's 100% in your best interest to want it to be disposed of closer. Russell, if you read it in, or?
A resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Southwest Ranches, Florida, approving an interlocal agreement with Broward County, Florida, for the use of temporary debris management sites and other related services, authorizing the mayor, town administrator, and town attorney to execute any and all documents necessary to properly effectuate the intent of this resolution and providing an effective date.
I guess we need a motion first on that.
Yep.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
I do have a question about it, though.
Go ahead.
The debris that would be brought there, is there any limitation on the type of debris that would be brought in there?
This is material that would be considered C&D, construction and demolition, or non-vegetative, so you couldn't bring green material, you couldn't bring trees, you couldn't bring the vegetative stuff that our debris hauler has been picking up to this point. Right. Right, it has to be related to the storm. Good point. It couldn't be things like televisions and things like that. It has to be
Materials,
Right.
roofing
all
materials.
related to the storm.
Relate to the storm. No dishwashers,
No.
no
No white
refrigerators,
goods,
no
no.
television.
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, my concern would be that there would be other contaminants somehow brought in there. That would be my concern, and that would be my hesitation with it. I guess if we're comfortable that that's not going to happen, then I'll vote for this. But the last thing we need is to open up, have this be a way of slowly reopening that area out there to non-vegetative debris that can go downhill, and that's my concern. That was, I don't know how many people were here when that was this, but this is sounds very
Vice Mayor,
similar.
if I can just elaborate and
used
kind
to
of
be.
clarify the point.
Yes.
This is going to basically be used as the attorney said, as a transfer station. It's going to be used as a temporary debris management site to kind of go through the debris that's brought in and sort it. And so if there's anything like that, it's not going to stay there. Basically, it's used to kind of take the incoming waste, sort it, and then process it further. And it would be shipped other places for final disposal.
Okay.
Any public comment on this matter?
David Kaczynski, 6411 Holity Trail. My only concern has to do with what contracting hauling company will be involved with this, because as of the recent developments that were discussed earlier, I think the town has some concerns about who's hauling this stuff away.
If I can answer that, it would be basically the same debris hauling contractor that we have currently been using.
Who's that?
Okay.
Because we're under contract.
See no additional public comment. Public comment closed. Back to us. Any discussion on the item?
No.
All right, call the question.
Councilmember Schroeder?
Yes.
Councilmember Fisickelli?
Yes.
Councilmember Jablonski?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Bright Cruz?
Yes.
Mayor McKay?
Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Awesome. I'll accept it.